Welcome back to another episode of Artist Interviews. I'm your host, Rochi Roach. Today we're meeting with friend, artist, activist, and educator ALKAID Ramirez, aka Toads the Wizard. He's a photographer here from Santa Ana. Today he'll be showing us his work that will also be shown in his solo art exhibition in Crear Studio called From Hood to Suburb this July. You're into the whole Chicano experience, and if you want to know how photography, Chicanismo, and how those things relate to activism, today's world, this is the episode for you. You don't want to miss out. Let's get into it.
How's it going, folks? My name is ALKAID Ramirez. I am a photographer from Anaheim. I was born in Santa Ana, raised in Anaheim for the past 28 years now. And a lot of my practice as a photographer looks to documenting, archiving, and responding to the materials and the environment around me, as well as diving into my family roots, family histories, and the nuances in between of all those relationships, and navigating that space through the environment that I'm also documenting. So I'm currently going through a three-phase process where I'm archiving, I'm documenting, and then I'm responding to my environment, my relationships, and to the archival finds that I am looking at and finding within my, whether it's in my family archives or whether it's in my environment. Kind of detailing all of these nuances of the Chicano experiences, being a first generation child to immigrant parents as well, and having those relationships and those experiences kind of created and showed to display and have a collective, and show that there's a collective experiences within the diaspora of the Latino movement and Latina movement as well. So one of the first kind of bodies of work that I started off with when creating and going on to these phases was archiving my family photos, digging into the crevices of all the family photos I could find, scanning them onto my computer, and kind of just casually looking through what images brought what memories as best as I could, and also trying to find a history of my family that was unknown to me before I was even born. And one thing I always tell folks too, and when I talk to my own students, is I always tell them, you got to remember that, your parents were they're their own person before you were even born. They lived a whole life and they had their whole experiences. And I think it's important for us to try to find out what those experiences were, and trying to dissect how that, ties into your own experiences in that generational kind of trot down of experiences, trauma, etc., and things in that sort. So one of the first things that I wanted to do was set a base ground, and I did that with this piece here, the RNS family tree. Now, the RNS family tree, the reason why it's called RNS will become relevant a little bit later on, but this basically documents the kind of monarchy of the family, showing that my mother and father, at the top as a collage Polaroid image, coming on down with wires and nuts, connecting to different members of my family and their little ones and my nieces and nephews. So as you can see, the family is quite large. I actually need to update it because we've had a new arrival as of late. So in just having and setting this framework of what the family is now, I'm able to kind of work backwards and see how we got to be here. In documenting and looking and archiving through my family photos, I found a lot of pieces that really told a story to me, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the story. I'm looking for a history of my family. And one of those pieces here was, just some regular wedding images, kind of pieces of photos, and collage them together from my mom in her youth. And also working with different materials to kind of show the different aspects of my dad's identity as well, as he used to be a merchant mariner. So a quick little background about my parents is what I found out as well is that my father was a merchant mariner that went to the academy in Mazatlan, Mexico. And he lived in Sinaloa, La Rosario in Sinaloa. Went to Mazatlan to get his captain license, is going to the Naval Academy. and came out, a couple years later with his certification to be a captain. And for the past 9 or 10 years, close to about a decade, he was working on the large tanker ships, oil tanker ships coming in and out from Pemex, as well as doing certain tours with tugboats as well, kind of traveling all over the world. And lo and behold, he finds a port out in Tamaulipas, and he finds my mom on the port city selling things, and he decides, in his words, me lo llevé. He took her. That's it. and that was a done deal. And he quite literally did. He quite literally took her on the boat with him, and they went on a couple excursions while he was a captain on that ship. So that's kind of like the backstory that I get from my folks as far as that goes. And so seeing how that progressed into their immigration to the United States was also a very important thing for me to find out and search through. So basically that gap between them meeting and me being born. And what I found in those archives as well was quite a bit of history. In looking into all of those archives, there was quite a bit to go through. This piece is currently untitled. So as you can see, it's a collage of family photos from the earliest born to the last born, going in and kind of just going through the process of our family and how it grew and the experiences and the multiple memories that a lot of us share. Some of the photos here even show my father on the boat with my oldest sister and my mother, ranging all the way through to more modern day images as of late, and also reminiscing on some of the people who we've lost, which are my mother and my grandmother on my dad's side, and also my mother's side. Now, on here you will see a couple of other kind of documents. Here is a poem that my uncle wrote while he was here in Santa Ana with my father. They were religious, and they were, singing songs and writing hymns as well. And some other pieces of material you'll see are to correlate with that religious aspect of the family is some, Mormon kind of book cards that the missionaries would give out. And that's kind of significant because some of the we used to have missionaries that would come to our house, and while we are no longer practicing the Mormon religion, it was very important for my family and for my parents to have that kind of community especially as they were immigrating into the United States, because as much as, maybe perhaps, we don't agree with most of their values or at least some of their practices, they were very welcoming. And so they were able to, open up their resources and their arms to my parents, would allow them to kind of get off the ground and, stay afloat while still in the United States and finding those connections that they needed. However, we do also see these 2 postcards, which will be important later on, of these developers reaching out and wanting to buy the house that my dad had purchased when he moved here to Anaheim shortly after I was born. Now, on top of all of these images, well, not on top, but under all these images, you'll see that there's other papers scattered around here, kind of all around as if it was a messy table. And these these documents are rejection letters and application papers. Specifically, rejection letters that were sent to my father after he moved to the United States to try to look for work in what he studied in Mexico, which was to be on the ship and also captain and, make tours and, doing all the captain stuff. But if you sift around through some of these, you can kind of start putting together the idea that he received a lot of letters that declined him. But through those rejections came the blessing of our family, because at that point he decided, all right, maybe this isn't the best time for me to try to be a captain and leaving my family as it's continuing to grow. So instead, he decided to plant his roots in Anaheim and start his own repair business, appliance repair business, which is where we get R&S appliances from. Hence, the receipts that you'll see on the family tree here are some of the older receipts that, you know, kind of come from the beginning of the business, little work receipts, and going down towards the end, you'll see more of the new kind of new logo, updated logo, R&S appliances. It's also part of it's also the hat that I'm wearing today. In the process of going through these archives and going through my family history, there isn't always going to be, you know, butterflies or rainbows and, you know, the greatest things that you'll find. Sometimes this is kind of the point where you start finding more of the defining moments of your family, whether it comes down to how far you've came and also traumas. In the mix of finding family photos, I found this image right here, very small, but it is an image of my mom and my dad. And when I was going through a suitcase of photos, I found this particular photo in the front part of this collage torn up. I didn't tear it up, and I'm not sure who tore it up. It could be my mom, it could have been my dad. But for whatever reason, they felt the need to still keep the images a mix of all the other family photos that we had. So I think it's important for, as an artist and as somebody who speaks within the community, to know that these are not isolated incidents, and, you know, whatever kind of traumas are happening in the home, I think it's important for us to go ahead and to kind of put it out there for other folks to recognize that they're not alone in those situations. I think it just gives a lot to think about. So I titled this image Caught in Between, because you can see that there are two other smaller images in the back. There is my parents' wedding image, and as well a family image of when I was a baby, and all my siblings were much younger, caught in between the tears of those two images. But in the process of archiving all of these images, I started to think about, how does this turn, how now I have to work backwards again, right? In the process of working through all these archival images, I'm also thinking about, how does that turn back into the present day? How does that relate to the nuances in my life? And how can I show those experiences to the viewer and kind of display those subtle realities of, you know, being Chicano and also a first generation immigrant child? As I talked previously about how I went through my archival practice and kind of going through the histories of my family, now I'm trying to bring all those stories back into the present day and figure out my relationships with my family, figure out relationships with the materials around me, as well as, you know, my environment. And in one of those things I always seem to find is that as I'm growing older and I'm living with my family currently as well, I'm not only just living with them, but I'm also I'm negotiating my own space. And in the negotiation of space comes the need to try to find a place where I can find myself belonging, and finding myself kind of in a contentious spot with the materials that my parents want to hold on to. Coming from the background of my parents, they grew up with, you know, very little, and the kind of necessity of items wasn't available to them until they came to the United States, where they were able to have access to a lot of items for the things that they perceived that they would need. However, I think a lot of you know, Latino and Chicano folk can recognize that, you know, that sort of becomes a problem with, you know, space in the house and kind of hoarding, kind of always having these materials around and always thinking, oh, un día va a tener uso, or something like that, you know, or, you know, todavía sirve, and kind of stuff like that. And you're looking at a pile of, you know, what you perceive as junk, but to them they perceive it as something much more memorable and much more needed. So again, I'm trying to tackle these nuances of these relationships that we all kind of are going through within our generations, and it'll continue on for quite a while. So this piece currently right here is called Todavía Tiene Uso, And it is kind of a grid collection of images that show this kind of formal portraiture of these items that my parents, feel like they need to keep. But in kind of the investigation and the presentation of these images, what I'm trying to do is give them this very like formal image, just make them kind of look as if, they're very important. In the middle, you'll see the kind of royalty that is my mom and my dad, and one of our dogs, Broly, big old pit. Don't come to our house; he will be there. And surrounded around them are just a fraction, a very small fraction of the materials that they refuse to throw out. You'll see things such as like big, trash bags full of yarn, trinkets, wine glasses, old amps, a broken vacuum cleaner, a broken, old downshifter to a car, lots of craft materials, rusted foundations to lay ground, which I advised my dad I would not want to be in a house that uses those foundations. And a bunch of other kind of working materials, and ironically, a trash can that's filled with things that they do not want to throw away. But also what we see here is materials and items that they feel the need that they might need later on in the future. And it kind of gives me a glimpse as to what they see in their future as well. So we kind of see an old, like a walker slash, where they can sit down. Maybe they're thinking once they get older, they're going to need that. You see crutches in one of the images as well. And you also have this kind of, in that same image, you have this kind of medical seat for the showers, where they know perhaps at some point they'll have to, won't have the ability to shower as they're standing up for the lack of the strength. In this image, you can see a lot of kind of different materials and random objects that might be tossed around. The more and more I look at these images and the more I think about these materials, I'm thinking about what are some of the dreams and aspirations that my parents had for these items. Kind of giving me a glimpse into what they hope for in the future and what they are also being prepared for and what they're trying to prepare for. So we see this kind of like wanting to be creative, this wanting to want to continue and grow and build upon the house, which in turn grows and builds upon our family as well. But we also see a future where that they're thinking about of, what may happen to them as they grow older and older. And then once again, I have to put myself in that situation because, like I said, I'm negotiating space with them. So it's almost as if they feel that I'm intruding on what their aspirations and what their perceived futures are when I'm asking them to toss away these items. So I think sometimes it could be a very touchy subject for them to try to, want to throw these items out, especially when you yourself are trying to find your own space. So we also have two pieces here in the bottom that talk a little bit more about that, about the kind of belonging and or the need to hold on to items. On the left side of the image here, this photo is called "I Love You, but I Live Here Too." In the middle of this image, we see some mango trees, and this mango tree is one that has been in my house since I was there. And you can see it's large, it's illustrious, it's got, plenty of fruit to bear, and it kind of works as a analogy to how our family has grown. But again, we see these glimpses of these materials that are surrounding it that kind of intrude on what the size of the tree and how it's being portrayed. An old air conditioner, an old car that is just sitting there not working, and a Christmas tree that's been up for 3 Christmases and won't come down. Finally came down. I have an update though. The Christmas tree came down. But now that corner is piled with other things. And again, the portrait of my parents. On the right side, you see sort of like this this 2x4 holding up a branch of the tree that has a ton of these, ton of the fruits, kind of like the mangoes hanging off the branch, to prevent it from falling to the floor. And you also see these juxtaposed images of the shed where we keep a lot of these items, and then me holding a broken door, a bucket. My relationship with like the materials in hand, me being in the image as well, the 2x4 shows this kind of idea of, you know, being a male in the family and having to, having born with this responsibility to uphold the family name. And, you know, a lot of the times that can be a large pressure being put on you. But I think I want to kind of disassemble that kind of idea of machismo in Chicano culture, and allowing ourselves to just be like the mango tree and growing in whatever way we need to grow. So I find it important for me to be able to still uphold that plant instead of just allowing it to kind of weigh itself down. And on this side of the street, I'm still documenting, right? So now I'm relating those images back, and now I'm more so documenting outside of my home and looking at different spaces around my city that relate back to who we are and where we lie within the community and where our space is. So now I'm going from a macro or more of a micro lens to more of a macro lens, into where we stand in our community and where we stand within the culture, and as well as, you know, our experiences and the materials around us. I have some images here, some with, you know, police officers on street, some portraitures of the folks in the community, boxers that are El Diamante from Anaheim, a very well awarded boxer. Also events that have been happening in our household, as the kind of images you see here of my brother being baptized. And then under that, we kind of see more the imagery and scenery that I'll see around the neighborhood, plants, signs, you know, people collecting cardboard, the labor of the working class folks trying to get by in whatever means that they can, and the kind of imagery you would see in the kind of hoods that we walk around, or in the kind of hoods that, you know, we exist in. However, those things are changing. Now that, you know, I've kind of given you the kind of rundown of the archival practice, the documentation that I've been doing, and the nuances of my family, as well as the environments around us, one of the things that I also noticed as I was doing these bodies of work was how rapidly these things were changing and how they weren't as I remembered. And that is just hands down due to the rapid gentrification of the neighborhoods that I grew up in. Specifically Anaheim Blvd. So now that I've archived, I've documented, now I felt like I needed to respond. And this body of work that will be showing pretty soon at Crear Studios on July 18th, all the way through to September 14th, is the culmination of those 4 years of work, of trying to combine the archival documentation and the response of the kind of rapid changes that have been going around in the neighborhoods around me, and also the neighborhood that I grew up in, which was on Anaheim Boulevard and South Street. What you have here is a panoramic image starting from South Street going all the way down to Santana Street on Anaheim Boulevard, both the east side and the west side of the street. So this is a two-sided book and two-sided image. And what you'll see on them as well are little post-it notes that detail the specific oral histories and the kind of memories that I have of living on that street, as well as what I hope for in the future, and what kind of, you know, little ideas I wish I could have had and presented to make these spaces a little bit more communal. What I would hope for in the future, and also kind of just like visual investigations and factoids, and also you know, visual facts about what is going on the street. Anything from pointing out luxury high-rises and the inability for a working class family from Anaheim to be able to live in them, all the way down to the empty lots that have been basically dirt for the past 20, 25 years. with developers sitting on those properties as speculative assets. But now we're starting to see the progression of these developers rapidly changing the landscape around us and on the street as well. Kind of having these luxury homes being built in less than a year, and with rent going up higher and higher every year, and inflation as well, it's getting more difficult for working class families in Anaheim to stay where they grew up in and where they have been for generations. This is problematic for many things, because not only is there a displacement of families and also a larger diaspora of people who have grew up in the area, but there's also a kind of dissolving effect of the community that used to be there. And without community, a luxury hotel or a luxury condominium and a luxury apartment is just, neighbors who are next to each other, and what's communal about that? I'm very much in tune with my students and what their needs are, and always trying to figure out, as an educator and as an artist, how can I put these in front and on full display for people to recognize that these issues are, while they're not super quick, they're happening faster than we think, and they're impacting a lot of the people and a lot of the families that have grown up in Anaheim for generations. So what I started to do is create this image, and also I started to, at the same time, create responses. Now, if you remember back to the larger image collage that we saw in the beginning with all the family photos and the rejection letters, I pointed out 2 separate postcards that were on there, and I told you that they would be relevant later. And those 2 postcards are these right here. These are postcards, and this isn't just the one, there are multiple, but I went ahead and I picked out these 2 specific cards to kind of platform this issue that I'm trying to document and also trying to show. And these are letters from developers asking us to basically sell our home to them as is for a cash value price that they see fit. These are extremely predatory postcards and very intrusive in the way that they are presenting themselves. Because, for one, these are postcards that are trying to prey on people who are desperate with the rising rent or with the rising cost of living in places like Anaheim and Orange County in general. They are looking to try to get a house on the quick, pay it for dirt cheap, and flip them so they can sell it to a different market of people. And quite frankly, I'm not one to be in agreement with having the necessities and the absolute bare necessities be commoditized for through a kind of market where people are going to capitalize on folks who don't have a home and people being displaced. So these letters that we got specifically are from, like I said, from developers. This little one, white one right here, says, "Dear Juan Ramirez," which is my father, "my name is Jem and I want to buy your property at 709 South Anaheim Boulevard. Call me at the disclosed phone number, as is all cash." Very, just demanding, telling us that they want to buy our home, nothing more, nothing less. And on top of that, they just added like a little Google image of our home, as if they're surveilling us or they know where we live, as if we don't know where the fuck we live, Like, I know where my house is at. I don't need you to be sending me postcards of a picture of my home saying that you want to buy it. And then this one, I think, is one of the more intrusive ones here, that is from a company called Monty Buys Homes. And they basically is a card trying to say, "Oh, we've been trying to reach you. This is the final notice that we want to talk to you. We want to buy your property at 709 South Anaheim Boulevard." And this is kind of them trying to make it seem like it's a last resort for them to reach out to you with these postcards, and it's necessary for you to talk to them and see about their deal, because if you don't, this deal will never be available. So it's playing on this idea of of like a kind of time frame that you need to work within their time frame in order to sell your home. And people who are desperate and desperate for money, they might go ahead and prey on those kinds of families to give up their properties. So what I ended up doing with these bodies of work is I ended up recreating them and kind of flipping them on their head. So as I'm looking at these, like, these kinds of these postcards, and I'm thinking about how I would want to respond to them, I immediately just thought about, doing it verbatim and just flipping these postcards on their heads, kind of going through it and rewording the whole thing as a, giant, leave us the fuck alone kind of scenario. So we're trying to reach you, but you know what? We don't want to talk. Stop sending us postcards to our home. You're clogging up our mailbox. Replacing this phone number that they gave us to 714 Hood to Suburb, which is what this kind of body of work started to turn into. And what I started to see was this neighborhood changing into kind of this like suburbia, and this like very disassociation of community occurring through the gentrification. And on the back, it's, trying to call attention to my father. So I call attention back to Monty and telling him that we're not going to sell our home, so he better stop asking. We're we're sick of your stupid little postcards. Like, why the hell would we sell you our home just so you can overprice the housing, this housing project, and further gentrify my hood? You're a parasite to the community, and your greed and your kind of greed drives hardworking people to sell their homes as their last resort to survive as a result of your developments. Don't worry about the condition of our home. My father has put his heart and labor into this house. And also kind of just like letting him know. And I found out that his business actually went out of business. I couldn't find them. Like it like completely went out. So they talk about closing costs. So I kind of mock them a little bit, and I say, I'm glad your flipping company went out of business. Talk about closing costs. And kind of just letting him know, like, stop looking us up. We don't want to contact you. We don't want to talk to you. Stop sending us these things. And that was my response to those postcards. And I did the same thing with Jem as well, making that same kind of response to the postcard with Jem, using our kind of Google image photo for them to send it to us, and making sure that that is very intrusive and that they should not be able to be doing that. And as I'm responding to these realtors, I'm thinking about who else can I respond to, right? What else can I respond to, and how can I make such take their tactics and flip them on their head? Well, lo and behold, there's developers by our house that that were building up these like luxury high rises, and also these like luxury apartments. Luxury, I put quote luxuries because they're really just luxurious for the location that they're in. If anything's in like a 5-mile radius to Disneyland, or to the Honda Center, or to Angel Stadium, it's considered luxury because of its location, and not because of the material and the style that it's made in. So as I start seeing these like leasing offices going up, and these signs as well going up as these buildings are being built, before they're even done being built, these signs are going up saying that there's previews and that there's rooms ready to come check out, kind of giving you an idea of the pricing. So in the process of responding to those postcards, I wanted to go ahead and start responding to these leasing signs and these like advertisements that were going up around my house and near my neighborhoods, to try to respond back to those images as well. And I wanted to do something a little bit more different. Instead of just responding to them, I wanted to go ahead and just show what these images really mean in the eyes of the community, in the eyes of those who are currently living there. Multiple houses and multiple kind of communities and housing areas or mobile home parks as well have completely been erased due to the developments of some of these projects. And one of the ones that I'm talking about is one specifically called Midway Village. Now, Midway Village used to be on Midway and Anaheim Blvd, right in front of the Anaheim swap meet. And currently there is a new development being built there that's supposed to be for affordable housing. But right next to that affordable housing kind of structure is these towering hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of luxury condominiums being built. And it's by this popular company called the Toll Brothers. So what I started to do was collect these signs and kind of like rework what they really mean and what they, by in the eyes of the community. And I started collecting them and bringing them to my studio to try to like rework them. So here are some of those signs. What I would do is I would take these signs from where they were. This one is Toll Brothers Quick Move-In Home Event. And this one is another Toll Brothers National Outdoor Living Event, right? So flashy, trying to get people in. So I decided to rework them, changed it to Toll Brothers. Quick, move out of your home. You're getting evicted. You're getting evicted, fam. Event. And again, Toll Brothers, instead of national, just, national housing crisis, living outdoor event, right? Because that's exactly what's going to be happening when we continue to displace these families. As I took these signs and created these, I went back and had a copy of these signs, multiple copies, and placed at the development site where I found these originally. So almost like kind of guerrilla warfare art, kind of just taking signs and replacing them with what I feel and what the community feels they really mean, is kind of the tactic that I was going with in the response of these kind of properties being built. So these were some of those examples of those properties and those signs that I'm responding to. Another one of the signs that I responded to was this real estate open house sign. I don't have the original with me today, but I do have the reworked one, and it says open house, but it's a gentrifier focused open house with, in the parentheses, says, don't bother coming if you're a local, you can't afford it, or you'll get priced out. Their company name was Anvil, so I kind of did a play on words, and they had a little I. Instead, I replaced it with the anvil weighing down a person. So it's a real estate, Anvil Real Estate, count on us to weigh you down. Replace their phone number with, again, the phone number of 714 Hood to Suburb, showing how drastic that these changes are happening and changing the neighborhood. By the way, selling a 1,200 square feet condominium for $850K, like, get out of here, man. Who's affording that? And then one of the larger signs that I took, and this project was a lot more larger and a lot more popular because of the placement and where it was. This building is an apartment complex on South Street, on the street that I grew up on, South Anaheim Blvd, just a little bit down the street from my house. Started to get built, and what I specifically did with this building is I tracked how fast it was built. And as they had A-frames and the leasing signs kind of like in 3 different parts of the neighborhood, I decided to borrow one of their frames here and kind of rework it as well. So as you see, it says now leasing with, showing where to find the complexes and stuff like that. So what I went ahead and did is just, again, flipped it on its head, showed its real intentions. Now gentrifying, Citron, you got $3K for rent. Now gentrifying, Anaheim's for sale. Make more money or get bought out. Again, changing the phone number to the acronym or to the tagline 714 Hood to Suburb. This was also a sign that I replaced and I put back in its original space, right at the development site, right at the project site that was there. This frame in particular lasted only about an hour. Not an hour, sorry. It lasted only about a day. And the A-frame went inside the leasing office, and as it came out the next day, it was gone. So someone in the leasing office took the sign, they saw it, they read it. I'm sure people found out about it in a little bit more higher up. And that piece is now gone, but now they got a piece of my artwork that they didn't ask for. So that's kind of like what I was continuing to do. Now that I've kind of gone through the process of responding to these things immediately and kind of giving my 2 cents on what I feel they actually mean, I'm looking back at home, and I'm looking back at the things prior to these developments being built, which are these empty lots. What are these empty lots? Where do they come from? What used to be there? And specifically, who lived here before? So when I was 6 years old, I remember having neighbors to the left side of my house. And I started to do a little bit of digging to find their homes. And I remember for a chunk of time that these houses were being uprooted physically and being moved elsewhere. So I decided to go into more of an investigative route and trying to figure out the addresses for the homes, where they had been moved to, and why they were moved. So apparently, the city of Anaheim decided to do this take of, finding historical houses that had been built by the settlers that came to Anaheim, and moving them to a neighborhood kind of behind the main street, sticking plaques on them and saying, "Oh, they've always been here, and they've always been, historical houses." However, those houses, two of those houses used to be houses where my neighbors lived. And in this piece right here, I'm kind of going through the investigative process of these complexes being built. What do they really mean? How do they affect the surrounding environment and the surrounding neighborhoods, and also my neighborhood? And also figuring out, where the fuck did the neighbors go? Like, where did they go? So I was able to find the houses, the images of the houses here through the Anaheim archives. The only images I could find before they were moved, so these houses were on Anaheim Boulevard before they were uprooted. So that's them on Anaheim Boulevard next to my home. And here I have those images juxtaposed onto the empty lot that is now present next to my house. This is an investigative piece of kind of me trying to detail and try to track how fast these changes were occurring, and also trying to remember and trying to archive the spaces that were prior to these drastic changes in the environment. You'll see multiple kind of postcards or little post-it notes around here, similar to what I've done in the book and detailing my oral histories. Now here I'm questioning, what the meaning of things are. Also explaining how to raise rent in less than a year. These homes, detailing how these homes are starting at $800K, and seeing how they want to bring in a new crowd or a different crowd, asking questions, and also asking questions while also showing and detailing the erasure of certain neighborhoods such as Midway Village. Following these post-it notes, you'll also see the drastic kind of dates and the changes in which these complexes are being built being showed at the bottom of these images at the top, starting from May 30th, 2021 to August of 2021, and then into March of 2022, and these complexes going from straight dirt to being completely built in less than a year. I went to these sites every 2 weeks and I took photos of them and tracked how quickly they were being built. And it was done in less than a year. And then that's when the signs started to pop up, and that's when I started responding to the signs. And at the same time, I'm investigating, is this what all these empty lots are going to be? Are they going to be these like luxury apartments that are going to price people out and price out locals? And it seems like that is going to be the case. However, Now I think about the postcards that are being sent to my house with this empty lot next to my home. And these developers are just trying to buy off that piece of land so that they can go ahead and continue with their developments and building structures like these and completely changing the neighborhood in less than a year. So in these kind of overlooming feelings of, the potential erasure of a community, of a neighborhood, of a family that has history, of a family that has roots planted within the city, a family that's still trying to figure out their position in the world and their position within their own family structures, a family that's trying to kind of build in and continue to thrive under their aspirations and using the fuel of their dreams and what they see their potential futures can be, and trying to detail where we fit in this world. It's constantly being threatened by gentrification and the vast changes that are occurring within our neighborhood. So as I'm going from my archiving phase into my documentation phase and now into my responding phase, it kind of leaves me in a very unsettling position where eventually everything that I've documented, everything that I've archived comes and stems from all of it happening in Anaheim, in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and my home. So all these pieces and all these different kind of bodies of work are in communication with each other and talking with each other and trying to find out not only what our story is, where do we belong, but how much longer are we going to be able to be here and continue those stories. Now, I would end this in saying and recognizing that this isn't an isolated incident. This is something that's occurring in all neighborhoods all around the nation in America. While some people, tend to think that real estate and going into developing projects are a great way to make money, what they don't see is that these numbers to them are also families and their people, and they're affected. And that using that as a mode and as a way of financial freedom for themselves is also creating a crisis for a family and a crisis for a neighborhood that is struggling to survive. If anybody that sees my work takes anything away from it, is to pay attention to what's happening in your neighborhoods. Pay attention to the changes and pay attention to what's going on in your local municipal governments and your policies. Because if there is ever going to be a pushback towards these changes and making sure that a community stay together, it has to be through collective action of us supporting each other, whether it's through mutual aid, whether it's through organizing to try and go to your city halls, find out what they're doing, speak up, go say something, put in a public comment, email your representatives, right? Try to reach the phone lines of your city council members and tell them that, hey, this is happening and this is a problematic change for our community that we're trying to preserve. Like, what is it that you can do for us to help us out? Because as much as this is very much a fruitful experience, a very opening experience and a very catharsis experience for me to be able to show these experiences and also share them with you. It's also, I do not want to leave with this impending doom that we might not be here like in the next coming years because we're being priced out, because we're being pushed out, and because we're desperate to try to survive in an ever-growing economy that only sees people as numbers and not as human beings. So pay attention to what's going on in your neighborhoods, pay attention to what's going on in your municipal governments, and be active. Don't be afraid to speak out for the right things. There are always resources that you can reach out to, and there's always things that you can do to help keep your neighborhoods afloat.
Thank you for coming with us today. That was today's episode of Artist Interviews. I'll see you on the next one.